Once upon a time, there was a magical land where people could look beautiful and full of whimsy without the discomfort of a corset. This magical land is here and now. What you need to start with is a t-shirt that is entirely too small. If it is uncomfortable across the chest or in the sleeves, that's okay, we'll be cutting them out. What is most important is that it is tightly fitted across the belly, and we will be loosening that to a comfortable size. While you have the shirt on, mark from the side of the neck hole down, around, and under the breast. Most people would tell you to use tailor's chalk so it disappears in the wash, but I had a Sharpie and I'm a lazy sewist. With the shirt flat on the table, use your ruler to measure from side to side to find the middle and mark it. This shirt was a V-neck, so the middle of the neck was already obvious, but if yours isn't, measure that as well. Draw a line up and down the middle of the shirt. We are also going to be cutting off both sleeves, and the back of the neck to get rid of the rest of the t-shirt collar. Cut up the middle where you marked in the front of the shirt only, don't cut the back. To make sure it is even, I cut one half of the shirt while it's folded in half. If you do this, make sure the seams of both sides of the shirt line up, so when you cut it, you don't accidentally cut into anything you don't want to, like into the sleeve. Once I cut up to the collar, I lay it back, front facing, and trim off the back of the collar. And then cut both sleeves off, including the seam. Now that we have made our cuts, the bodice is taking shape. To stiffen the front lacings, I took scraps of canvas, though you can use a different stiff fabric like twill, and place it on the front of the shirt and sew along the edge of the middle. Measurements of the canvas is however long from your underbust to the bottom of the shirt is by at least 2.5 inches. Now we are going to flip the canvas to the inside of the shirt, leaving a nice finished edge. Sewist will say press your seams to make it flat. I say be as lazy as you wish. I certainly won't judge you. Next, sew a line parallel to that finished edge a 1/2 inch away. This part should be thread matching the shirt. Repeat this 2 more times, all 1/2 inch apart, so there are 3 lines creating 3 channels. Trim the canvas so it matches the shirt and is hidden. We will be finishing the raw edge on the top and bottom of the canvas along with the shirt, but now we will finish the long edge that is hidden. You can do this however you like to, but since I have extra bias tape, I will be trimming it to a straight edge and encasing it in that. Repeat everything you did with this side to the other side. Now that both sides are done, we will be finishing the raw edges on the top with bias tape. If you are using a different color from your t-shirt like I am, change out your thread to match. We will be using the bias tape from the middle of the shirt underbust, up to the shoulder, across the back of the neck, and then back down the underbust of the other side. Most sewists will probably tell you to sew one side of the bias tape on the inside of the shirt, then wrap the bias tape around the edge and sew on the front, and that is how you know that your shirt is sandwiched in the bias tape, but I just do it all at once and hope for the best. The consequences are I might have to do it 5 times to fix it, but I also might only have to do it once. How I start is I flip the bias tape against the fold and sew it down. Then I flip it back, use closed scissors to give a crisp corner, and now there is a closed edge that I can put my fabric inside. What would also help this process is using clips or pins, but I don't do more work than I need to, but I accept I might have to do it again. As I said, I won't judge you for lazy sewing practices. At the end, I cut the bias tape at an angle towards the shirt so less of it is visible. Then I fold the bias tape inside itself to finish that raw edge such that the fold is at the edge of the shirt and sew it down. You can hand sew the bias tape completely closed around the corner so it matches the other side's nicely sewn corner, but if I'm being honest, I probably won't. Next, we are going to finish the raw edges of the armholes with bias tape. We don't need to do anything special to the bias tape when we start because we are finishing in the same place we start, so we can just cover the raw edge with the bias tape in the end by folding it like we had done before. Now we go back to those channels we sewed in the front. Mark dots in the middle channel, 1.5 inches apart. The idea is the eyelets or grommets you use will be a 1/2 inch wide and they will end up being 1 inch apart. From the fabric store, you can get 1/2 inch eyelets that come in 2 pieces that look very similar and come with tools that look like this, and that definitely works for this project. I buy grommets in bulk for other projects that are similar, but one piece has a short tube in it and the other is almost completely flat, and I use this handheld grommet tool from Amazon. This is an awl for making holes through the weave of the fabric as opposed to cuts that might spread. If you don't have one, you can use a small blade of tiny scissors like that of a Swiss Army knife, but it actually cuts the fabric, so it would be easier to tear bigger than you actually want, so you need to be more careful. You put the side of the grommet with the tube on the outside of the shirt, so the tiny tube goes through the fabric. This goes in the top of my handheld tool, the flat piece goes in the bottom, then I squeeze them together, and now the hole is protected from fraying by the metal, and it looks nice on both sides. Now do this to all of your marked holes. Next, do the same thing to the other side, mark to match the other side. Puncture a hole. Put the grommet in, use your tool to clamp both pieces together, repeat with the other marks. Once all the grommets are in both sides, we insert our boning. In this magical land, everything is cheap and easy, so we'll be using zip ties for boning. These are wider, a little less than 1/2 inch wide, and more heavy duty than your standard zip ties, but you can find them at hardware stores and some shipping centers. You can use scissors instead of wire cutters, but it is more difficult. Now, I usually skip filing down the sharp edges, but I don't want to be responsible for you getting shanked like underwires like to do, so I'll lead by example and do it this time. Slide the zip tie into the channel on the edge. There are multiple layers of fabric here. I find it easiest to do it at the very bottom of all the layers closest to the canvas side. Then pull out a little bit of the zip tie, cut off the edge, file it down, and push it back in. Then do the same thing for the channel on the other side of the grommets. This keeps the front nice and flat when we lace it up. Repeat this on the other side. Once all our boning is inside, we will finish the bottom edge of the shirt starting from one opening all the way around the back and to the other side, the same way we did to the top edge. This will trap the boning inside their channels. After that, all that is left is to lace it up. Since this isn't a normal corset that shapes you, we don't need special corset cord that is really strong, just what you think looks nice. While I do this, let's sum up what is needed for this project so you can copy it down. Equipment used: marking tool. I use Sharpie, probably best to use tailor's chalk. Fabric scissors, something like a yardstick that measures in a straight edge. Sewing machine. Alternatively, you can use needle and thread and more patience than I possess. An awl or tiny scissors. Grommet tool or eyelet kit. Nail file or sandpaper. And wire cutters for cutting zip ties or use non-fabric scissors. Materials used: 2 tight t-shirt, canvas or other stiff fabric at 2.5 inches by the length of your underbust to the bottom of the shirt. Mine was 10 inches. Matching or complementary color double fold bias tape. I got 2 packs at 3 yards each and it was enough. Eyelets or grommets. I used 10, but if yours is longer, you might need more. Wide zip ties. I used 1 at 36 inches long, though they do make them shorter, you just might need more than 1. And ribbon. I used about 65 inches. And that is it for making this magical land a reality. If you came here from TikTok, I will probably be making more in-depth tutorials of crafts already on TikTok, but I have other ideas and anything new will also be posted to TikTok in shorter, more confusing videos. See you next time and stay magical.